Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 143 of the Noclip podcast. Danny here. For those of you on the video version, I'm in a different room. Look at my beautiful drop ceiling. Look at this beautiful set behind me. Moving stuff around here in the Noclip studio because got a couple of projects in that we needed to do some extra types of filming. So giving it that TLC that, a year after moving in, I finally am settling in here. Jeremy Jane, how are you doing? How's your house? How's your beautiful little woodland cottage doing?
It's doing great. I've been thinking about asking my landlord if he would sell me a little tiny crumb of the backwood because the woods just stretch for like a mile back, and I don't think he's gonna say yes, but I have to ask.
Would you be able to get a road back there?
That's the other problem. There's like a dirt road. I'd have to probably dig with a shovel a huge trench to make the road work.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so it's probably not going to happen.
We've all played Minecraft. That doesn't seem like that
exactly.
big a deal.
That's what I'm going to tell him when he asks if I'm capable of doing that.
Get that terraforming gun from Astroneer or something.
Yeah, it's easy.
Do the job. Frank Howley, how are you doing? How was your den? We had some comments on the YouTube thing last week saying they just love your room, your getup.
No,
sick posters.
Thank you. I feel like it's just piles of manga and video games and trash, but it's
getting emotional about it there.
No, I don't talk to anyone when I wake up until like 3 hours when we do the podcast. That was the first time I said anything out loud all day, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize. But no, I'm doing good. We'll get into it. But PAX was rejuvenating, and then
yes.
I finally, like Tuesday, the day after, like getting back and getting settled, I just slept all day. I was so tired, so I finally made up for lost time. So I feel pretty good, cozy, and reset.
Yeah, me too. Let's talk about PAX for a second. We are going to talk about some games today. Actually, a bunch of games. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, Blasphemous 2, Sea of Stars. I've also played some Shotgun King, which finally came out on consoles. We'll probably dip into Starfield a little bit as well. And we'll talk about PAX in a second. But first of all, if you would like to support our podcast, fund our documentaries and get access to bunches of bonuses, videos, podcasts, and loads more, head over to patreon.com/noclip. Like our incredible Battle Pass holders, Battle Royale Games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Jason Drury, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, Carsten, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Darren Birmingham, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Ladd, Alex Sharp, Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, Sylvintro, James Andrew Adams, Tohir, Tiliev, and of course Ryson. Thank you all so much. I met some of those people. We both did, Frank, at PAX West this past weekend. I flew in on Saturday, in and out. I flew in at like 6 a.m. from Oakland and flew out at about 9:45. There was 14 people on my flight back to Oakland, which was very strange. They advised us not to change sides of the plane in case we tip it over or something on the way home. What did you make of PAX? You were obviously there for 3 whole days. You arrived Friday and got out of there kind of Sunday afternoon, early afternoon. What did you make of PAX? Was this the first time you were back at West? Were you there last year?
No, I was at PAX West last year. The weirdest thing about this PAX was they added a new convention center to it, so it was split across like 3 different buildings, and then on top of that, Nintendo had its own separate convention floor that you needed a separate badge for and all this. So it did the convention didn't seem crowded because people were so spread out across so many different things. So it was kind of hard to gauge the excitement, the what people were into.
And the buildings were kind of like, it's not even as if they were beside each other. Like the new convention center is like 4 blocks from the old one, so you end up walking on city streets to get over to it. By the way, shout out to Kevin for giving us the wristband for the Nintendo section as well. I'm going to get I couldn't do it because I had to get out of town ASAP to get back to my 14-person plane, but Frank, we'll ask you about that in a second.
Yes.
But sorry, go on. Yeah, it was kind of hard to gauge how many people were there.
And this happened with you and me, but this happened to other friends where I got to PAX and was like, cool, where are you? I'm at the convention, I'm on the expo floor. And like my friend Carlos who works at Sega is like, where are you? I'm like, I'm at the same building, right? And he's like, no, you're at the other building. So it was constant like walking back and forth. But by the second day, I was acclimated. The weirdest thing at this PAX, and I love it, but maybe not other people do it. There was so many brands at this.
Oh my God. There was literally battle of the brands.
Yes.
Was it called Battle of the Brands?
Yes.
Oh my god. That's
DoorDash
fucking ridiculous.
sponsored some like esports stage where each competitor had a different fast food chain. There was like Panda Express, Arby's, Taco Bell, Del Taco, McDonald's, and each one
Burger King.
each one had like a branded computer. So a Taco Bell computer, an Arby's computer, which I adore.
And their clothes
Yeah.
as well. Their clothes were the clothes were good. The clothes were like that Burger King shirt looked all right.
Yeah, I was kind of sad. Like, wow, is there more freebies? Like, there was a lovely lady wearing a Taco Bell shirt, and I'm like, where do I get these Taco Bell shirts? I'm all about it. The coolest thing, they had free mashed potatoes.
Oh my god!
There was a booth that had like
they were not nice.
10 microwaves set up. There was just like, it was like a mashed potato dispenser. You can go up, get your cartridges, whatever you wanted. So I did go walk away with ranch mashed potatoes, which you can pour water in a microwave, and that was
Wait. What were they serving these mashed potatoes?
So
it
it
was
was
like an ice cream cone scenario.
It was in like a plastic bucket. Like it's like a, you put this in the mic, just add water, and then it's not just mashed potato. It's like mashed potato and cheese and like flavoring. So they had, what was it, Frank? They had like cheese and ranch were the two flavors.
I think one was
not
ranch and the
nice.
other was like 1,000 cheese mashed potatoes.
Awful.
And then on the in the other expo hall, so if you want to walk 4 blocks away, Cheez-Its had its own booth, but there was the Cheez-Its like PUBG Battlegrounds had like several different brands. There was the trolley gummy worms, which you could like scan a QR code to get free gummy worms. The Cheez-Its booth, which you get free Cheez-Its at the end.
Man.
No energy
Free to play
drinks.
is weird.
Yeah.
This is just like a list of like Nabisco's allies and corporate sponsorship.
We did play games in between the various branded opportunities.
Did you guys play the Cheez-It game, or like what was the Trolley Bright Crawlers game like?
What was the biggest sellout game that was there? I spent most of my time in the mega booth part. I mean, I wasn't there all that long anyway, but I got to play Pacific Drive finally, which
nice.
was really cool. It takes place on the Olympic Peninsula, so it reminded me of filming Dwarf Fortress and Choo Choo Charles. It's like a run-based driving game where you have this like card, and it's like there's some sort of like extraterrestrial or sort of, I don't know, some sort of threat. Maybe it's computers or robots. I'm not quite sure, but these like sort of floating beasts. It's very like, I don't know, Lynchian in some way. Like there was one part where you have to go around and collect these little orbs to basically like power up your car. And when I was doing it at one stage, I turned around and a bunch of mannequins, or not mannequins, but they were like sort of people frozen in space, like as if like sort of like Vesuvius or something had, crystallized them or whatever, or kept them there, like Pompeii. But then when I turned around, one of them was like looking right at me. It was, so there's definitely some like, it's fantastical and technological and stuff. But you're just driving down this car. You're like trying to fix it when it busts up. You're going off road to try and like collect these things. It's very atmospheric. I was into it. Yeah.
Is the vibe of that game kind of like a Pacific Northwest Stalker? Is kind of what it looks like to me.
So there's no shooting in it, and there's no like.
But just in terms of like, it's kind of a. Like grounded but mysterious. It seems like a game where it's like the real world, but things are kind of just like turned
not
upside
necessarily.
down.
I'd say it's more. It's way more fantastical than I was sort of expecting. The only grounding element that was in the demo that I really saw was like the car and the gas station you sort of like operate out of. Like at the end of the thing, you basically the objective I had, and it took maybe 15 minutes. And again, this is maybe just for show floor. Maybe the length of the map might be optimized just to get people to play the game. They had a bunch of booths. They had like 4 booths. You had to get a certain amount of energy, and basically there were these little sort of like almost like glowing orbs that you use to get the energy. It felt kind of like Half-Life 2-y. Frank, you made the point. It was kind of like Half-Life 2, like the way in which you were trying to drive from place to place. More Half-Life 2 Episode 2, I would say. Like where you're driving that car and like putting stuff in it and that type of thing.
It reminded me of the Gnome. There's even like a bobblehead in your car when you're driving around.
Which there's the little there's a little hula girl in episode 2, but like Noam Chomsky, I guess it's but basically like it's kind of like you have to look at the gear stick to put it into park and drive. You have to look at your it's a kind of an 80s car, so it's got one of those like right hand levers for the headlights. You have to put those on. If the headlights break, they go out. The doors can get busted up if you crash too much, all that sort of stuff. But once you get all the energy required, then this sort of big, like light source, like sort of like appears in a part of the map, and then almost like a PUBG style ring starts to close in, and you have to get to the exit, which is this sort of ethereal light beam thing. So it is more fantastical, at least in that thing, than I was expecting. But it's not. That's not a criticism. It's cool. It looks fantastic on PC. The console version I was playing, and it looked pretty good too. But the lighting and everything on the PCs they had there looked really sick. I think it was UE4 they're on. So I don't know when that's coming out, but it's and it's been developed up there too, so it's pretty cool. No need for speed tree. You just go out and take some photographs. That's how game dev works, right?
Yeah, you just take pictures and then put them in a computer.
Frank, how was your experience? Did you play any? What was some of the games that stood out to you on the floor?
Yeah,
there was a lot of stuff you'd played before.
Yeah.
I know that.
Like there's like a thing with PAX is like I was at PAX East just 6 months ago, so a lot of the same booths and devs are like Animal Well, which is always looking great. It was there. Anton.
We had a fun chat about that. I was like, I'm excited to see them, and it's amazing that they're at all this sort of stuff and being like, yeah, sorry, I was shit talking to your publisher. He wasn't there. Donkey wasn't there himself. At least I couldn't see him. But like, it was fun. I was kind of like, prove me wrong in that video we put up on Noclip Crew, and I think largely they've like done right by them. Like they're at every show, and he's obviously been promoting it a bit on his channel, but not in a way that I felt, because I was worried that he was going to use. That this was going to be a way to basically just like use his channel to milk marketing for games that he has a financial stake in. But I think the way they've gone about it has actually been pretty great. I have no issue with it. So it was cool to see those guys, because I hadn't seen them since the Jeff Keighley thing back in last summer, I think it was. But yeah, sorry, Frank.
Yeah, and then other games I had seen before was Antonblast, that insane WarioWare Crash Bandicoot game was there. There was one new game that was part of the Steam, I think, Summer Games Fest or whatever, called Captain Wayne Vacation Desperation, which looks like
is this the first person pirate thing?
Yeah, this one's nuts because it kind of looks like a build engine shooter like Duke Nukem, but the sprites are all hand drawn. It actually kind of looks like Duke Nukem, like the Tropical Vacation DLC. So yeah, Captain Wayne Vacation Desperation is a really cool, trippy first person shooter. It feels good. It's very zany, cartoony, and wacky. So that's I think there's a demo on Steam you can download. In terms of bigger platform stuff, I didn't get to play Tekken 8, but Tekken 8 was on the show floor, and that looks so good. That comes out in January. I was very excited to see the Sega booth. I got to play Like a Dragon, The Man Who Erased His Name, the latest Yakuza game that'll be out in November. And that's the one where Kiryu is now like a secret agent. So he has all these spy gadgets. He has like Spider-Man abilities where he can like use razor wire to group people together. So the combat's very big and over the top. I'm sure I think there's other stuff. There was, I think, even like Baldur's Gate 3 had a giant booth, but I still haven't played that game.
Bloodlines 2? Was that playable?
Vampire Masquerade, something like that, yeah.
That's what it's called, yeah. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. It's Bloodlines 2 was available there. I think it was playable, which is weird. That's obviously gone through a lot of weirdness where the Chinese room is now working on it, which seems a little bit outside of their wheelhouse. Like, that's an interesting situation because they've made a lot of like, I guess that I'm not sure if the term walking simulators is something we say anymore, but that's obviously sort of their forte. And obviously Hardsuit were taken off of the project, and Brian Mitsoda, who we interviewed about 8 years ago, was also fired off that project. So it's gone through a lot. Vampire. I'm trying. Yeah. What else was there?
We saw the game that Jeremy told us about. I'm never gonna be able to say this right. Thaumaturge. The Thaumaturge.
Oh yeah.
This Polish game, which kind of it has like Persona elements. That game looks awesome.
Yes, that was cool. This is the Warsaw, but with demons. In like the early or late 18th century or something like that. It was, or maybe a bit earlier than that. It was during when for that 100 years that Poland didn't exist. This is the time when the Russian Russia basically, or Russia as it was then, was Warsaw was part of the territory. So it's a CRPG kind of with like also turn-based fighting. It looks really beautiful. It's you are a sort of a private investigator who's able to use demons, but the demons are like tied to people's emotions. So like I'm editorializing a bit here, but like, you know, if one of the people in the world has like depression, maybe they're being sort of it felt Witcher-esque in a way that like there's something wrong with these people. Oh, guess what? It's a monster that's doing it for this reason. You know what I mean? Like the sort of monster of the week style thing, but it's demons that are fucking with people mentally. And I think then you can like use those demons yourself in combat to like imbue certain things. It looks really cool. Just a great like setting. We asked them if it was based on any like book or anything, and they were like, no, this is all just like our vibe, our thing. So yeah, that looks interesting. I think the name is a bit of a nightmare, but hopefully that doesn't stop people from checking it out. You told us about that, didn't you, Jeremy?
It's kind of ringing a bell. It's definitely not one that I championed, but I might have.
I think what it was is we looked at the publisher when we were talking about some game, and then that caught our eye.
I think I might have seen
or
it.
something. Yeah.
This does look cool. It's funny. Persona, Eastern European Persona is kind of the perfect pitch for this, because it's like it's the Witcher's vibe, but Persona's conceit or something.
Yeah,
it looks good though.
Yeah, 11-bit put it together, which have a sort of a bit of history in that sort of using Central and Eastern European stuff. Like I think this War of Mine and Frostpunk would have been games that they worked on. Yeah, and they're also publishing now, I'm guessing, is what's happening there, I think. But yeah, 11-bit are based in Warsaw, so I might be wrong. Maybe are they actually developing this? Maybe I've just got my head wrong.
On the Steam page, it says developed by Fool's Theory, but
and published by 11-bit.
And published by 11-bit.
Okay, yeah. So I guess they're just like using their success to fund other games as well, which is pretty dope. Fool's Theory worked on. I'm not sure.
7.
Let's see if they actually worked on it. No,
yeah, that's what I'm trying
I
to
think
figure
they
out.
might have just helped on it or something.
Cool.
7, the video game of the movie 7.
Yeah, featuring Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that looked dope. Trying to think if there's anything else. The panel, of course, then we did, which was incredible. We filled the room. They had to turn people away. We had like, I don't know how many people fit in those rooms, like 1,200, 1,500 people, something. Maybe more, I have no idea. We filled it up. That's the first time that's ever happened. That was really cool. I was like, the last time we did a panel was 4 years ago, and we had a bunch of people at that one. We never managed to get that many folks, so it was really cool. We showed off some bits and bobs. If you're a patron, we have harvested the live stream that was put out. PAX, you can find links to PAX's archive. They don't archive their panels, but you can find links to them. If you're on the Noclip Discord, it's in there, and if you follow me on Twitter, you might be able to see it in the replies. And if you're a patron, I just topped and tailed it and put it up on Patreon as well. If you want to check that out, the whole hour of it. We announced some stuff. We showed some tapes. We showed off some Xena Warrior Princess outtakes. We showed some of Frank's Burger King doc, which got a great pop from the crowd. Did a Q&A. Took some suggestions. Frank, what were some of the suggestions that you remember from? Oh, do you still have the sheet there? Oh, great. Frank remember beforehand and just kind of went up to people and asked for suggestions for documentaries. And then we kind of asked people, we read them out live and got like a feedback from them.
Nice.
One of them was Cyberpunk. There they are. Nice one. One of them was Cyberpunk, which it just so happened that Radek was in the crowd, the global PR lead for CD Projekt Red. So we asked him and he was like, yeah, let's do it. So we've confirmed.
Making connections on the fly.
Cyberpunk 2077 documentary. I have to follow up with him on that. I haven't done that yet, but that's cool. That would be cool. I guess they're ready to talk about that game now that Phantom Liberty is coming out. What else did we have on there, Frank?
I'll go through a few of them. There's the history of the achievement system with the Xbox 360. Thumper, which actually got a lot of that like old rhythm
which
game.
Then I subsequently remembered we did.
Oh yeah, we did the GDC talks videos.
We did.
Yeah, with them.
It's like a 20-minute Thumper doc up on the channel. I mean, it's not a doc. It's
Yeah.
like an interview, but like, yeah.
I think it's a game that Jeremy had recommended or talked about, but people recommended Rain World.
Oh yeah. I've only played a little bit of it, but it's really cool. Me and my friend literally just bought it the other day to start this week, so I will report
dope.
back on Rain World.
Yeah, do.
Stardew Valley got a big pop. Let me see. Facade, someone had mentioned.
Love Facade. What a
I would
weird
love
ass
a
game.
Facade, Doc.
I would too. I think that was made in like a university.
Yeah, it was
I
like
think.
a project. Let me look it up while you're reading
Andrew
that.
Yeah, you look it up there. Thanks.
This did come up a handful of times, but yeah, Volition and even just the whole. I mean Volition would just.
They closed down last week, obviously. So there's an angle there for the games they made, and also one on just dive back into that cesspool of companies being shut down. Although now it's part of the Embracer methodology of just buy up a bunch of studios and then contract your business by 2% and end up firing 5,000 people or whatever. And else, Frank, any other highlights there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything. I mean, Control, Remedy, people are always asking about. Team Fortress 2, which was a fun suggestion.
Preach to the choir there. Anything.
Yeah.
We'll just keep doing Valve documentaries over and over again.
Respawn and Apex Legends.
Yeah, I said Apex Legends and there was a little bit of love, and then I said Titanfall 2 and the place went crazy. So.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah. You can check all these out on the stream as well if you want, over on Patreon. What's the deal with Facade? Do we know who made Facade?
So it's two dudes, Michael Mateus and Andrew Stern. It seems like they were both just kind of computer science and programmer designer people who just came together to do this like project. Yeah, I don't know.
Do we know where at all?
It says Mateus was a doctoral student at Carnegie Mellon School of Computer Science. And
where's that? East Coast somewhere?
I think so. Is that New York? No, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Stern was a programmer and designer on the virtual pet video game Pets with a Z.
No way.
Yeah.
Should we do a doc on like those, like
Yes.
dogs and
Yes.
cats?
Yeah.
Probably,
yeah.
right?
If we do the Facade documentary, I feel like there's got to be a long intro about the history of Pets with a Z.
Oh my God. I wonder how many people bought dogs and how many people bought pets.
Isn't there also babies?
Or cats.
There's
Is there
babies?
babies? Oh my
Isn't
God.
Okay, that's kind of fucked up though, because then that's just saying that like human children are ontologically the same as like dogs and cats.
Yeah, which
Which
I mean,
I-
a lot of dog owners will tell you that.
Yeah.
A lot of dog owners who don't have kids will tell you that.
Sure, and I'm sure some parents will also tell you that of small children.
That they're just like cats.
Yeah,
They just pee everywhere.
you fill their bowl up and it's
They
basically the
were,
same.
oh, dude, of course. I was like, I bet this is a Bay Area thing, and it totally is. The original Pets games were developed by PF Magic, who were located in San Francisco, California.
Any relation to the Chinese food mega chain PF Chang's, you think?
PF chain. Yeah, they just had all this extra money lying around. So, yes, they did. They had Babies, was one of them. And
I don't like that one.
Oddballs, which
That's not an
doesn't have its
animal.
own Wikipedia. I'm not sure what that is. Dogs and cats. Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. They also produced Max Magic, the world's first electronic magic kit.
Okay,
There you go.
I love that. We need to cover that because I have a natural curiosity for whatever the fuck that is that I need to know what it is through a documentary.
Holy shit, there was a... Oh, they did not make Balls, did they? Balls was the 3DO game, I remember that. They did, they made Balls. Jeez, they just make games with fucking Z's and
That's the
Z's in
trick.
them.
That's
Oddballs
how
is...
you make it.
Oddballs looks like cats, but they're aliens or something. They're just
Okay.
like weird things. Fuck, we should figure this out. PF Magic. See if they're on Moby Games. The biggest one I think we got to pop off, though, was a certain rapper's video game, Frank.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know how this came up, but I think it was piggybacking off something else. But yeah, we somehow ended up talking about 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. And
Yes.
people did freak out over that, which I would love. And that is like playable in Xbox Series X, so it does look and run great. And Xbox Live Co-op still works for that game. I tested it like a year ago. But yeah, 50 Cent Bulletproof and Blood on the Sand.
Do you think 50 Cent would talk to us for a video games documentary?
I was trying to think about that. Would he? Like is he that inaccessible? He did the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with
That's true.
Dre and all them.
I wonder if like other members of G Unit would be more accessible, maybe.
yeah.
I think
Yeah, some of the
Marshall
lesser...
Mathers.
Yeah. Is he in G Unit? I don't even know who's comprised.
Oh no, he was in he was in the other one. What was D12? He was
yeah.
in?
But yeah,
I was gonna say B12, but that's a vitamin.
G Unit, and again, what's funny about 50 Cent Blood on the Sand is 50 Cent's playable, but if you do co-op, you can play the other G Unit members. So there's
Okay.
Tony Yayo and I know Lloyd Banks. I think there's other people in the game, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah.
I have hunted down Andrew Stern, who worked on. You said he was one of the Facade guys, did you?
I believe so. Yes.
And he worked on. He was the development lead on Pets. It looks like as well.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn, Chris Bratt is a mutual connection. So
All right.
maybe people make games are working on a Facade
Dude,
documentary.
we gotta
Who
scoop him.
knows?
We gotta get that pet stock first.
Yeah, he's based up in Is it Oregon? It says Portland. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Let's find this motherfucker. Talk about some weird ass games he made.
Yeah, where's Facade 2, man? You've been holding out on us.
Exactly. You've been holding out. I want to see more husbands and wives arguing about their terrible marriages.
I want to barge into more doors and kiss both of the people inside without saying a word.
Forgot you could do that. Look at their comically large wedding picture on the wall. It's like the size of a fucking movie poster. Good stuff. See, you're right. This is the type of shit we need to be working on.
Right.
Thank you to everyone who came out to PAX. Thank you to everyone who came to our panel, who said hi to us on the show floor, who took pictures. We did loads of selfies. We gave out a load of stickers and lanyards and all that sort of stuff. It was a blast. It was good for the soul, I think. Frank will attest, and it was really cool. We actually got a lot of people. I met Blind IRL there, who's a really good Dwarf Fortress streamer who offered to help with getting gameplay for our Dwarf Fortress stock, which is an absolute lifesaver because that's kind of where we're at the moment on that one. Everything else is done. We met a bunch of people. We had a couple of dock opportunities as well have come from this as well. So yeah, it's exciting. A lot of kind of fun stuff. But anyway, time to talk about the video games that we played. Let me start, I guess, only because I have the most ones, and otherwise I'll just be talking shitloads at the end. Blasphemous 2. So I have to go to confession because I did not play the first Blasphemous, and I'm pretty sure if I never heard of it, I never registered it. I never thought about it, considered it. I don't know why it's sold like Dave Oshie was telling me on Twitter that apparently it's sold 2 million copies. I think it has quite a lot of positive Steam reviews. So I went into Blasphemous 2 completely vanilla. I don't know why it caught my eye. I think the art style perhaps is what dragged me in initially, but I knew nothing about it. So anything I say about this could be very much what Blasphemous 1 is like. I'm not quite sure. The game is a side-scrolling, I guess, Metroidvania, but the combat is a little bit less sort of arcadey and a bit more, I don't want to say soulsy, but I'm saying it. It's a bit more high stakes, shall we say. There's different combat moves and things like that. But the sort of, the vibe of the game, and it made complete sense to me when I realized that this game was developed in Spain, is this like very sort of Baroque Spanish like sensibility to the whole thing. Jeremy, you said you played the first one, right?
I played a little bit of Blasphemous 1.
Yeah, what do you remember about how that played or what you liked about it?
I remember it feeling like a little bit heavy. I kind of bounced off it because I think I played it. I was replaying Hollow Knight for the first time in years, and I was like, I need more just like Metroidvanias where I go around a big world smashing shit. And that's
the most similar connection that's in my head as well.
Yeah, I found Blasphemous a lot more punishing than Hollow Knight, and so I bounced off it a little bit. But I definitely have been meaning to go back to it. I just haven't found the proper time. But yeah, the art is unbelievable. It's just these like giant boss sprites that are just, I mean, we talked about this when we talked about Red Candle's game Devotion, because it was like a Buddhist horror game, and I really like when people take sort of like their cultural background, especially like religious background, and twist it on its head into sort of like a horror property. So I love this like this Spanish reverence for Christianity and Catholicism, and these big grand cathedrals and all of these like it's kind of scary paintings of saints bleeding and covered in thorns, and it's supposed to be inspirational, but as a kid you're probably just like, this is terrifying. So I feel like it's taking that feeling of being in like a big Gothic church as a kid and seeing all the paintings and being like, this is actually really scary. Why is this supposed to be cool?
Yeah, 100%. It reminded me a lot of like we have a big there's a big picture of the Arrest of Christ, the Francisco Goya painting in my old high school. It's the one where Judas is like kissing him, and it's that Baroque Spanish Flight of Witches and stuff like this. These paintings that are just very like dark, black is used a lot. Like there's a lot of shadow happening. And I mean Goya is probably like maybe the most famous of that ilk. I'm not a huge art person. I don't know a lot of that sort of stuff, but like if you like, you'll know it when you see it. It's that type of like very naturalistic kind of features of people, like human looking people, but like lots of, and cherubs and lots of blood and like skin being used, like people being exposed, super dark and things like this. Obviously this game is like, it's like pixel baroque, I guess, is kind of how I'd describe it. And between that and the sort of like Spanish instrumentation that's happening in the background, it feels very much to me like the sort of European religiosity of like the 18th century, which I grew up going to school in a Lasallian school system. So our schools were De La Salle brothers, which is very much from that era. So a lot of our like teachings and the sort of, even not necessarily the style of the buildings that we were in, but like definitely the imagery that we would have been exposed to when it came to religion and when it came to history of our schools was very much this type of dark European, like Baroque sensibility, I guess. So in a weird way, I find this very comforting. Like even, and the words that they use in the game, I think I took a screenshot because I was, the way like all these, the way like, I think it doesn't play like a Souls game. That's not fair to say. It is very much a Metroidvania. It's just a hard Metroidvania. It's not even that hard, actually, I don't think. Maybe this one's a bit more forgiving. I'm not sure. But it's like a somewhat challenging Metroidvania, right? But I do think it lends a lot to the sort of the Soulsy games, in terms of like the Soul games have just allowed everyone to be as weird as possible and to obfuscate things as much as possible. So I picked up something and a little tooltip popped up on the screen, and this is for the accumulation of guilt. Okay, this is telling you about the video game mechanic, accumulation of guilt. Upon dying, a guilt fragment remains anchored to the world. The level of guilt rises, reducing the gain of fervor and your defense, but increasing tears of atonement and martyrdom points gained. Collect guilt fragments to partially recover or find someone who can ease your burden.
That's unbelievable.
That's a piece of information that is put on the screen to help you understand what's going on.
That's fantastic. I love how it reads like it just sounds like something you'd read in like a manual for a Super Nintendo game, but incredibly esoteric. You know what I mean? Like it's like fill the combo meter. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, the moment to moment of this game is like you start it up, it tells you there's a couple of bosses that are in this part of your 2D map, and it tells you where they are, but you don't know the rooms yet. And when you go into a room, it gets added to your map. There are abilities, the ability to like climb or jump higher and those types of things that will allow you to get access to areas of the map you couldn't beforehand. There is a somewhat deep weapon set. There's 3 weapons you can pick from the start. I just picked this huge fucking Morning Star hammer style thing, so it's pretty much like just one big swing, and I can power it up, or I can hit RB afterwards to make like a fire effect happen to it. The guilt thing, how that works is kind of like, from what I understand, is that every time you die, you don't drop any of the currency when you die, but it adds guilt to the world, and that guilt basically reduces your sort of mana bar. It's called one of those terms, I don't know, atonement or some shit, I don't know. I don't know. I'll know I've only played for like 3 or 4 hours. But it reduces the amount of that, so it makes, and I think the enemies might get a little bit nastier as well. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's like, what was it in Bloodborne when you sanity or whatever? Maybe it's like that. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to dip into it more. But you can go to a guy and basically pay to have your sins absolved. He's straight up behind like a confessional booth, which is pretty funny. There's another guy who'll carve these little wooden blocks that are kind of like, they remind me of like the small little saints that my grandmother would have, like whittled, like, oh, there's St. Francis, and that's, put that up on the windowsill and birds will come to the window or whatever, right? It reminds me of those things, but you basically, they're buffs that you can pocket, and there's a certain amount of sockets you have, and you can upgrade those to add it. So it's just doing that thing where there's more, you're getting more powerful through those buffs more so. I don't think you level up or anything. I don't think there's any, you get more powerful through that, as far as I know. I think it's mostly just adding to the skill set you have, I guess, and things like that. But it's just fascinating to explore this world. It's like my favorite thing about, I think this is where the Soulsy thing comes in, but also I guess this is true of Hollow Knight as well, where like when you go into new biomes, when you go into new areas, because the art is so beautiful and the enemies are just mad. Like there's one enemy that's like it's got big like, wagon wheel on their back that they use as a weapon. There's a bunch of these old crones in this woodland part that have crows that they sort of throw at you, and then when you kill the old lady, the crows devour her.
Oh my god, that
which
sounds
just
awesome.
looks dope. Yeah, the big bosses are really cool. They're just like just incredible animation, and yeah, you just feel like you're in this like pixelated painting. It's really something else. So I'm adoring it. I think it's a great Steam Deck game as well. Works really well on that. Yeah, and I'm gobbling it up. Like it's probably going to be in my top 10 at the end of the year. Like it's very, very, very good. Cool. And I will probably go back and play Blasphemous 1 once I'm done with this too.
I just looked up like a couple screenshots of it, and the first two I came across were a flaming nun on a giant hand holding a giant scroll, and like a priest who was flayed and his like skin is falling off. This is like
so good.
It's so crazy. I usually I feel like pixel art, people associate pixel art with kind of like a cutesier aesthetic, or kind of like a more fantastical in like in like a fantasy way, like cute dragons and unicorns and stuff, or like heroes and knights. And I feel like this is just it's leaning into like the fact that it's a little pixelated. It lets your imagination kind of go wild with the details of these more grotesque things. So like I remember like a few games playing as a kid that leaned into that, where like someone would get shot and it would just be like a few red pixels would appear on their torso, but because you can't really see what's going on, you're like, oh, it's like the nastiest thing I've ever seen.
And yeah, and it probably, because it's small, maybe proportionally it looks larger than it should be. So you're kind of like, oh, it's like super gross. Yeah, there's a lot of that here. And also then because they're like most of the characters are small-ish, you know, the same size as your character is, whenever you find one of the bigger things, like big statues that are, you know, like there's one where it's like, it very much looks like, I forget the Michelangelo statue, I think, where it's Jesus is lying on Mary's lap. I forget what that one's called, where you know his body is across her. There's one that looks like that, and where she's like weeping over a son. It's funny, when the game started, it started with like a straight up like anime cutscene, which was so well put together. I hate when games just start with story stuff, especially when it's like weird shit that I have to like listen and pay attention to. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll have to watch this. By the second panel, I was like, oh no, okay, no, this is great. Like, I take it back. This is very cool. Your world building is cool. Your imagery is amazing. It just looks really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Into it.
Yeah, I want to revisit the first one before I check this out, because I don't know if they're like sequential in story or anything, but it
says it's the same character.
Okay,
like
cool.
I forget the name of the character. It's like the Anointed or the something. But it says that they have returned.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna go play Blasphemous 1, and then I'm gonna give this a shot.
Sick. Let's stay with you, Jeremy. Sea of Stars is out. There's a little documentary on it that the Escapist Game-umentary is that channel was kind of I think Nick Calandra got the job as the editor at the Escapist, and then they moved all their stuff over to the Escapist. They've put out a bit of a doc about the development of the game around the launch of it. This came out August 28th. What is Sea of Stars, Jeremy, and what do you make of it?
Yeah, so Sea of Stars is a throwback to kind of like 90s JRPGs, I would say. Kind of like Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger, I would probably say, are the two biggest influences that it wears on its sleeves. It's made by Sabotage Studio, who made The Messenger a while back, which was Ninja Gaiden kind of inspired side scroller that switched between 8-bit and 16-bit and had like a time travel thing, which was kind of interesting. I liked The Messenger. I didn't love it, but I thought it was very fun and fluid and kind of like mechanically competent. So my fear going into Sea of Stars that it was going to be like good looking and good playing, but I was worried that maybe the story wouldn't hit, which was always kind of the big thing about like 90s RPGs is, you know, like Super Mario RPG is mechanically brilliant, but the thing that makes me fond of it is the fact that all the characters are very, like there's a lot of pathos. Like there's one character who's always crying, is kind of a crybaby, and every time he cries, you're like, no, I have to go get revenge for Mallow. Like I need to get out there and fix this. But so I played the first couple hours of Sea of Stars, and so far it seems really, really promising on all fronts. Mechanically, it's really interesting, and so far the story is good. It's definitely, it's the thing that I will wait to like reserve judgment on. Basically, is that it's clearly leaning into a lot of kind of like RPG tropes, which is totally fine as long as it takes those pieces and uses them to kind of build a foundation for an interesting and original story. It's kind of like it starts with kind of like a magic school. Like the two main characters are kind of training to be, they're called solstice warriors. They're kind of use like elemental magic, and they're training to, fight the evil of this world. And so when it started, and that was the kind of trope they were leaning into, I was like, all right, like I've seen this a bunch. What are we going to do with this? And then the headmaster was like, oh, you have to like hunt down these giant evil beings that wander the earth. And if we don't hunt them down, they'll get so powerful that they'll destroy the planet. And I was like, oh, this is actually cool. And I thought it was going to be, sometimes those JRPGs lean into the purity and innocence of those kind of stories. And I was very glad when they were like, oh, there's a guy called the Fleshmancer out there, and he's making like world eaters. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like I needed a little bit of grit or something, Like it can't just be all cutesy characters casting sun magic.
Because it looks like cutesy characters. I mean, this game looks beautiful, man.
The pixel art is fantastic. Yeah. It has this kind of feel to it that, what does it remind me? Like Witchbrook, the game that's being...
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Very like readable, colorful, beautiful pixel art. It kind of, the way I would describe the pixel art style is it looks like you remember 90s games, not like 90s pixel art actually looked. But yeah, it's fantastic. The combat system is also, it does a lot of interesting things. So one of my favorite things in Super Mario RPG is that have either of you guys played Super Mario RPG?
Never. No, I just know it from the Nirvana the band the song.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. So
Nirvana the band the song.
For some reason that just like registered in my brain as proper. In Super Mario RPG, it's obviously turn-based combat, like a lot of classic RPGs, but in the combat system, there's a lot of timed button presses. So when your character does a standard attack, there is a untelegraphed sort of moment where you need to press A again when the attack lands to do bonus damage.
Oh, cool.
And conversely, when enemies attack you, there's an untelegraphed point in their animation where you can defend against the hits. And so Sea of Stars leans pretty hard into that. A lot of the spells also are like time-based. So, for example, the female protagonist has a spell where she throws like a moon disc and it bounces off of the enemy and comes back at you, and you have to hit a timed deflection to hit it again, and so it does more damage every time you bounce it, but it gets faster and faster. So after 10, you're just like just like mashing X as fast as you can.
Oh, I'm watching that now actually, and their little trailer. That's really cool. Yeah, and you can point it at different enemies as well. Can you when you're doing that?
It like redirects it so it does like an AOE effect.
That's cool.
So yeah, there's a lot of like taking. I mean, Super Mario RPG also had the timed button presses and stuff, but it seems like they're leaning harder into those systems and actually adding a few interesting things. Like enemies they'll telegraph that they're about to do a big attack, and if you can it'll have like 3 icons. One's like a sword, one's a hammer, and one's a sun. And if you can do blunt damage, blade damage, and sun damage before they cast that big spell, it'll cancel it.
Oh, that's cool. So is it turn based?
It's turn based, yeah.
But then there's sort of like immediacy in the action with the defending and the attack stuff. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing with, I love turn-based RPGs, and I think that the success of quite a few of them in the last 5 years or so shows that a lot of people still feel the same. I mean, Persona 5 was a massive mega hit, and it's turn-based.
Right.
But the thing that Persona 5 does is similar to this, where they take that and then elevate it, because in Persona 5, it's about figuring out elemental weaknesses of different enemy types and then using them to do stuns and knockouts and crowd control and stuff. Go ahead.
What do you make of the Super Mario RPG remake that they've announced? Because it looks like they've just 3Dified the art, which kind of looks like maybe worse. I don't know, as a result.
Yeah, I was hesitant to weigh in on it when people were excited about it, like when it first got announced, because I obviously I think it's one of the best RPGs ever made, and I also think it's a really good entry point into that era of RPGs. I think there are things like Xenogears that are a little bit more grandiose. Like some people don't have 85 hours to like drive around the world with their mechs. So Super Mario RPGs, like the writing is so good, but everything is so simple that it's very easy. Like I feel like if you gave it to a child, even modern day, they would probably enjoy Super Mario RPG. So I'm glad to see it getting a resurgence. The art style is kind of whatever. It kind of has that, like, I'm not a huge fan of the contemporary Nintendo aesthetic, I guess. I feel like everything is so like shiny and kind of looks like little plastic toys. And it just like, I don't know. I mean, I'm also just like, I'm 32 years old, so I'm partial to like sprite art from that era because I grew up with it. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like they could have just put Super Mario RPG like I'd done a port on modern consoles and it would have been just as good. But
just fine, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're adding like cutscenes and stuff too, which I'm curious to see. I don't know. Yeah, well, I'll reserve my judgment. I don't want to be like the naysayer just because I'm like, back in my day we didn't have 3D Mario. But yeah, so Sea of Stars is hitting a lot of those Super Mario RPG notes for me. It's got some interesting characters too. I've played a lot of RPGs where all of the characters are kind of just like, he's like a knight and he's like a mage and stuff. And these characters actually have interesting aspects to them. There's one guy who's really into cooking and he's like kind of a warrior. So they call him a warrior cook. And it's like kind of just like fun little cutesy twists of familiar tropes, just tweaked far enough to be kind of interesting and novel.
Excellent.
So yeah, I've only played like the first couple hours because I'm in Act 3 of Baldur's Gate 3, and I feel like I can't open myself up fully emotionally to a new cast of characters until I kind of close that chapter in my life. You know, I can only have one video game girlfriend at a time.
That's fair. Sea of Stars has a lot of girlfriends. It was 25,000 or boyfriends or people friends. 25,589 people backed it. For a total of looks like 1.6 million Canadian dollars, and currently it is sitting pretty 88 on Metacritic and almost 2,000 reviews, very positive over on Steam. So people seem to be really digging it. Sea of Stars. I'll be honest, Jeremy, I've not played these types of games at all. I've stayed away from all these little 16-bit RPGs, and this is the first one I've looked at where I'm like, maybe I'll give it a go. Or maybe I've changed. Maybe I'm just a Blasphemous 2 Sea of Stars playing motherfucker.
The CRPGs really opened you up, man.
They did. And that's actually, we were talking about how at PAX West there was just CRPGs everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's just like, it's just like.
I mean, it's a really good genre. I mean, it's a great vehicle for storytelling, and like, I don't know. I feel like CRPGs are due a resurgence. RTS too. Where's all the RTS? Come on. In like 2025, I want to see RTS blowing up again.
Yeah, we had a couple of little ones. We had like the the remaster RTSs kind of came back, but not really that much more.
Yeah, but this would be a good entry point if you wanted to try out this era of RPGs. Honestly, like if Sea of Stars is interesting to you, give it a shot. But I also fully recommend the original Super Mario RPG. I recommended it to someone who had never played it, and they played it last year for the first time, and it's now one of their favorite RPGs.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
It's not just nostalgia; it is also like a very good video game that is kind of timeless. So. But yeah,
nice.
Sea of Stars is great. I like I said, I'm early in the game, but I highly recommend it so far. It has pleasantly. I've gone in with very skeptical, reserved expectations about it because this is the fear with this type of game is always that it's going for the aesthetics of nostalgia. That it's just going to be like, oh, this is just like that thing I liked,
right?
And not that it's going to be a new thing that I also like. So, but so far I've been very pleasantly surprised. I was surprised to feel myself getting like a little bit emotional and like kind of invested in the characters, and that's when I knew that I had to put it aside until I have space in my life for it.
Excellent. Out of interest, because you said Baldur's Gate, how's everyone done with Starfield? I've played a bunch more Starfield. Have you guys touched it at all, or are you kind of setting it to one side for the moment?
I fell off hard. I tried to play a little bit more. Yeah, I uninstalled Starfield after.
Oh my god!
I got to probably almost like 20 hours, and I was like, I don't know, this isn't for me.
Fair enough. Frank, what about you?
I did play maybe a handful more hours. I got a different ship, and that freaked me out because like, where the hell's my old ship? It took me. But what I like now, and I feel confident, is now I can Google it, and all the answers are there.
Nice.
So I was like, all right, you talk to this person, you change it out. I still got to figure out the resource management. When I was like driving around today, I was like, I'm just gonna sell my resources. I don't care. I don't need this crap. And if I actually need, I think I saw like a Reddit post that was like, if you actually need resources, just go buy it off vendors because I'm just hoarding all this crap and I don't know why. I can't withhold. Do I dump all my?
It's a big problem
It's nuts.
because it's like, at least I feel like in Oblivion and Fallout, you kind of get an idea of what's worth holding on to or something, or like if you've only got one encumbrance and you've only got one encumbrance to worry about, but because you now have two encumbrances, it's like it's almost like twice as much to worry about. Yeah, I played a chunk more. The main story definitely got way better as I kept playing, but yeah, I did. There's definitely a resistance there. I think it's like, so I ended up playing a bunch of Fallout New Vegas because I just installed it and went, I'll just play some New Vegas instead, because I wanted the feeling of just like going and getting lost. And one of the things that actually really annoyed me, which people were complaining about the local maps on planets, which I definitely agree aren't really there. They don't even exist really. But the thing that was really bugging me was I can't figure, maybe there's a way of doing this. I can't figure out if there's a way of looking at where the missions are in relation to their fucking locations. Like, I want to have a star map that has the missions written on it so I can see where to go. Because there's something that's really, like, I really like playing those games and learning where everything is in the world. And you have that in the cities for sure, and that's really cool. But, like, in the open, in the rest of the universe, like, I have no, like, I for whatever reason, I just want to do what's here. What's in this system? Let me clear this system. Let me get to know these planets. Let me do that. And I feel like there's no way of figuring that out, which is very discombobulating for me. So, yeah, I'm feeling similar. I feel like it's there's parts of it I'm really enjoying, and there's parts of it that are just like get in the way of like the format of it. Just without that having that ability to find the empty space in between the cities, which is one of my favorite things to do in those games. And that's just how I play those games. Same with World of Warcraft. I just enjoyed wandering and exploring, and I don't get to wander and explore in this game much at all. So, you know, for me, I was kind of like, maybe I'll just play Fallout 4 again or something, you know, and dive into that stuff. Or like there's probably some expansion pack I haven't done for Fallout 3 or for New Vegas or something. But yeah, I'm going to keep playing it. Because the main story, weirdly enough, is now the thing that's pulling me along, which is getting pretty interesting. I like the antagonists a lot. Okay, Frank Howley, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Please explain this video game. We talked a lot about aesthetics on today's show already with Sea of Stars and with Blasphemous 2. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, really going for that Jet Set Radio look, right?
They nailed it, yes. This is straight up Jet Set Radio 3. It's remarkable. I was hesitant because I remember this game was announced years ago, seeing the trailer. They had the original composer, Hideki, and finally playing it. I was nervous because I was waiting for the console release. I heard some early buzz. Finally, after PAX, I got it on PlayStation. And yeah, it is straight up Jet Set Radio. It is. The premise is you're a new crew and you're running around the city beating up other rivals, spray painting over their tags, challenging them to trick battles, to dance battles, also while running away from police and also beating them up and spray painting them. Aesthetically they nail it. The graphics look like that Dreamcast, that Jet Set Radio Future Xbox, like cell shaded. It's like you're walking around in an anime. It's so gorgeous. Everything is funky and ridiculous. Like NPCs have robot heads. Every store has beautiful graphic design. Like whatever they call the city, New Amsterdam. There's a rival crew called the Old Heads, and it's straight up like Beastie Boys, like Adidas tracksuits and boomboxes. Everything is so, it's just dripping with like, I don't know, street coolness. It's great. In terms of the actual like flow of the gameplay, you go to a new like city area, and a crew introduces themselves, and you have to run around this open world environment. There's infinite time, and just spray paint over their tags. So it's kind of like, feels like playing Tony Hawk Underground or something, where it's like, instead of doing individual missions, you're just looking at this huge area, and the graffiti that you have to tag over is kind of highlighted. So it's like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to get all the way up there? So then you start grinding and platforming, which kind of makes it feel like Sonic Adventure. One of the best factors on this game is you don't have to collect spray paint cans. And Jet Grind Radio and Jet Set Radio Future, you had a cap of like 20 spray paints or whatever, and sometimes massive walls would eat up all your cans. So you constantly had to do this annoying resource management. With here, it's very friendly. It's okay, if you get the tag, you can do it. And then once you tag enough, your rep builds up, and once you hit a certain rep, then you challenge the rival crew to like a 2-minute Tony Hawk style trick attack, and it's awesome. And that's the gameplay flow. And then throughout each like crew, there's like a ridiculous anime story of just the rival crews going, and it's very cool. And the soundtrack itself is amazing. So I think Hideki only did like 3 to 5 songs on it, but it's collected from a bunch of independent artists. So already on like Apple Music, someone has compiled the soundtrack, and I discovered one Japanese artist called Cyber Milk Chan. And the song was called Condensed Milk, and it's the most beautiful saccharine, like choo 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 choo. So I am gushing over it. I've probably played 6 hours or so on it on PS5, but it's on everything. I think on Steam it's 10 out of 10, overwhelmingly positive reviews. So if you like Jet Grind Radio, Jet Set Radio, if you like Tony Hawk Underground, they did it. It's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, it seems to be selling all right as well. 6,000 almost over there. And like you said, it's out on absolutely everything. That Hideki Naganuma soundtrack, making people super nostalgic. Yeah, there you go. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. I'm gonna try and check that out as well. What's the dollar on it? What are we talking?
I think it's 40, but I think it's worth it. If you're a fan, this is straight up Jet Set 3. It's awesome.
Excellent. Sea of Stars, I think, was 35. Am I right?
It's on Game Pass as well.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Terrific. Blasphemous 2 is, I want to say 20. I want to say 30.
Nice.
Let me just double check that. Yeah, it is $29.99. And I would again say that it is, so far, has definitely been worth it. The only other game I played this week to mention is Shotgun King, which I've been meaning to play for a long time. This is a chess roguelike where you are the Black King. All of the other pieces have gone to the white side. You're the last Black King, and you have to basically shoot all the incoming white pieces. It is turn-based. They move like chess pieces, but you have a shotgun that has like a sort of a physicsy style blast radius on it. So like everything else is specific and everything, but the weapon stuff can be a little bit, you're not quite sure what you're going to hit because it's a shotgun. I believe there are other weapons as well. And then for each level you complete, so like you'll basically start at the bottom of a chessboard, 6 pieces will come in or more. Initially, that's kind of what it is on the first thing. And then, it might be a couple of rooks, might be a bishop, might be a queen, might be a knight. And then they move, you move, and you have to reload your shotgun and shoot them as they're coming towards you. And they're trying to kill you. They have no guns. They just have like their abilities. So you'll see the bishop get into place and they've got the angle and you have to make sure you get out of that beforehand. And then when you kill them, it kind of goes up a level and you pick a perk, which then also adds something to your end. Like maybe you've got more reloads per move or whatever. But then on the other side, it'll be like, oh, pawns now have like spikes that move 2 places in front of them. So they're able to like get you from there. So it's like a nice mix of like roguelike, like understanding the basic rules of chess. Like you don't need to know chess strategies. This isn't a game of chess where it's 2 whole teams or anything, but as long as you understand like the ways in which knights and bishops and everything, rooks move, you'll be fine. Every time you kill one of them, then you get the ability to like use their soul to move like them for one move, which is very funny. But I don't think you can use that to kill people. But like, for instance, if I kill a knight and then I'm in a tricky spot and I'm like, oh shit, if I move in any direction, they're going to get me. I can like use the knight's soul to move like a knight for one move, because of course you're a king and a king can only move 1 piece at a time in any direction. So it's super cool. It came out last May. I think the reason I'm playing it is because I heard from the PR about, I believe it just came out on consoles. So I think that's why it's now called Shotgun King, The Final Checkmate. I've been playing it on PC anyway, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. It's a cool little game.
I was going to say, this seems like a game that someone made for a game jam, and then it was just like, it was such a good intuitive idea they had to flesh it out. And it says on the Steam page that it won Best Overall for Ludum Dare number 50.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In what year?
Ludum Dare 50. I don't know what that was like a couple years ago, or maybe 1 or 2 years ago. But yeah, no, it's like, it's one of those ideas that's so intuitively simple or something that I feel like once you prototyped it, you'd be like, oh, this is just like fun to play like weird shooting chess.
And I understand that it gets fairly layered, like you end up getting big enemies and like things happen to the board and stuff like that. They play with it and have fun with it. It's got a great look to it too. It's like almost like EGA or NES, or like it's minimal color palette, and it has a CRT filter on it. You can turn it off if you want, but it actually really works with it. I haven't played it on Steam Deck yet. I'm gonna give that a go. I bet it works really good on. I assume it's out on Switch. This seems like a game which would be pretty cool on that. It's out on Xbox, I think, recently. I'm trying to see if there's any other lists of what it's on here. I can't see off the top of my head.
The system requirements for this game on Steam are unbelievable. It says Windows 7 is the only serious one, and then the rest of them are processor. Yes, you should have one. Graphics. You'll need a screen. Sound card. If your computer can play sound, you should be good.
Wow. I'm surprised they let them do that, because having done the stunt derby stuff.
Me too.
It's madness.
That's really funny.
Frank, we got to get out of here in a little bit because I got a meeting, unfortunately. Well, it's a fun one, but I've got to go do that one. in a little bit here. But we have some messages, right, from our community, from the Discord and from YouTube comments.
Yes. We have a Discord message from Jamie Ogle saying they love the latest episode. It makes me want to play Oblivion again. That game does a fantastic job of breadcrumbing some interesting quests, but then leaving others just hidden away to find. I fucking love finding the pirate quest on my 4th playthrough. That just comes from sleeping in the boat inn because I needed to level up.
Yeah, the breadcrumbing of the quests is something that I feel like I did not get much of in early Starfield, but then has turned up a bit more later as I kind of mentioned in our big podcast. You kind of do some quests and then they turn up later on, kind of thing. But it's hard because sometimes it's like you don't remember people because you've met so many people, and because it's not in the same town, so you don't remember it was them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the
kind of stuff like that.
Like spatial context for that stuff is very important, because if you run into the same guy in the same tower out in the woods, or if they can like reference those locations, I guess they could do that in Starfield, but it is tough. The city name stuck with me, but then like they're like, oh, I bet you had like Phobos 16. You'd be like, I'm sorry, but I've been to a lot of Phobos lately. Like,
yeah, totally. Yeah, there was one guy on my ship who was talking about this moon he was from, and I was like, it took me a while to realize, oh, I was there. I think I met his mom. Like, he didn't know, but I'm pretty sure I actually talked to his mother and his siblings and stuff. But it took me longer than I feel like it should have for me to grok that, maybe.
yeah.
And then we had a YouTube commenter from Obsidian. I walked all night in Daggerfall with a stapler on my space bar. This is before I found fast travel. It was 1995 and a complete lack of user guides.
That's unbelievable. When I played Daggerfall a little bit earlier this year, I tried to walk from like a city to a POI that was it was like on the world map. It was 1 or 2 pixels away, and I took a coffee mug and put it on my keyboard or something like that. Or I can't even remember how I weighed it down, but I made like a Rube Goldberg device to press the forward key, and it still took like 20 minutes to get 1 or 2 tiles away. And the world is like 100,000 tiles.
So you can technically go to different planets in Starfield. I think it was Alana Pierce who put a Noclip documentarian. Alana Pierce worked with you on the Dream Daddy one, who did I think it was from Earth to Pluto, and it took, I think it was 7.5 hours.
Wait, you can actually just fly if you just mash forward?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can do it.
You can go there.
She did it apparently. Yeah, so it is possible. Just like Daggerfall. All right, that's a podcast this week. Thanks so much, folks. Of course, you can send in emails as well, podcast@noclip.video if you're interested. We're working on a bunch of stuff at the moment. E3 2010 is happening over on the Noclip archive all this week. We uploaded, well, by the time this goes live, everything will be uploaded except for Konami, which we are still searching for. But we have Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, E3, and Ubisoft all in 1080 available for your viewing pleasure. We're working on plenty of other documentaries here. The Burger King one, a couple of ones we can't talk about yet. Dwarf Fortress, the Axis Unseen as well, and some others. You're gonna start seeing them. We're gonna have a trailer for one that we haven't announced yet publicly. I believe next week. No, maybe the week after. I think it's we're doing it on the anniversary of the game's release. So, go find that out. I guess Google that and figure out what game it is. Yeah, that's it. A bunch of other stuff going on in the back. There's a lot of secret stuff that's going on that we wish we could talk to you about, but we can't. But it's very, very exciting. And it's got some great projects for later in the year. Patreon.com/Noclip if you'd like to support us, of course. Frank, what are you doing for the rest of your week?
This is the first time this week where I don't have to worry about my car. All August was every week my car was in the shop and it stressed me out. So I think gonna try to relax. I am almost done. I've been reading this book called The Last Action Heroes, which is all about 80s and 90s action stars, canon film industry.
I was about to ask.
It is so juicy and delicious. They'll go into like their fitness regimes, the contracts, Planet Hollywood, all the drugs, Terminator, James Cameron. So I have like 60 pages left. I tore through this book in a week. The Last Action Heroes. It is so good. And as a result, I've been watching Chuck Norris films for the first time. Nice. And they are hilariously cheesy and great. So yeah, so reading and action movies.
Terrific. What about you, Jeremy?
I've been reading Hunter S. Thompson's Hell's Angels actually for the first time.
Oh, cool.
I've read some other Hunter Thompson books, but this is the first time reading this one. And so he mentions Marlon Brando's The Wild One a bunch, which is kind of the 1950s movie about the Hollister riot, kind of the like pre-Hell's Angels biker gangs who rolled into a town where they were doing like a good wholesome American like motorcycle race, and they like pulled up on their hogs and like tore the town apart, like 3,000 bikers.
Wow.
So there's like a Marlon Brando movie where he's just this like very cool aloof guy who like barely says anything but is super cool. So yeah, I've been enjoying that, and probably play some more Sea of Stars. Can I share with you guys a mental defect in my brain?
Sure, absolutely.
You know, in like
why we're here.
This is like a therapy session. You know, in old games like Resident Evil, when you would go to the load screen and it would say Resident Evil and it would say press start, and you'd press start and it would go Resident Evil and say like the name in a weird voice. Every time I start Sea of Stars, in out loud to myself in my home alone, I say in Sean Connery's voice, Sea of Stars.
Is that why you drew that picture on the intro?
That is why I drew Sean Connery. I tried to draw Sean Connery in 3 seconds, and I figured
Sea of Stars.
I would just do the eyebrows.
Oh my god.
Sea of Stars, Moneypenny.
Mrs. Moneypenny.
Sea of Stars.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, you just said it once in your brain and it felt good and it stayed there.
Yeah, I think they should add that to the game. I mean, Sean Connery's dead, but I bet there's a good impersonator.
I bet there's a lot of good. I bet there's a lot of bad impersonators too.
Like, yeah, you're talking
Connery.
to one of them.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Me and my daughter have a lot of like little weird sayings we say to each other that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she has a little Elmo like Elmo puppet or just like little stuffy, but we call him Zelmo because there was like a cousin Zelmo that was in some weird Muppets like thing. There's a whole bunch of them. We talked about the Mexican Elmo's Mexican cousin. I think he's Pedro. There's loads of them. There's like a whole we basically looked up the like wiki for Elmo, and I was like, Zelmo. Like Zelmo is the kind of like we have Elmo at home Elmo.
Wait, they didn't call Mexican Elmo Elmo, like EL space MO.
Mo, right? Yeah. Lost on the kids. It just went for Pedro. They were
all
like,
right, that's fair.
Easy, I guess. He was only in one episode. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of one episode Sesame Street characters. But her Elmo's called Zelmo, and he's crazy because he just like, so that our joke with him, our gag with him is that like we put him somewhere because when she was a kid, it was easy to do this. We'd like, I'll put him in the box. Okay, he's in the box, and then we'd go to sleep. We'd pretend to go to sleep, and I'd move Elmo to somewhere in the room, kind of looking at her weird and going, Rah! So that's what we call Zelmo now. So
I love that.
We don't call Elmo ever. He's always Zelmo.
That's fantastic.
And he's always weird. He's always a bit of a creep.
Well, I'm a big fan of Zelmo and his evil deeds.
Welcome to the Zelmo
family.
universe has expanded now that I've said it on the podcast. We're all fans of Zelmo. All right, that's the podcast. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for coming to the PAX panel. Go check that one out. We could actually extract the audio and stick it up as a podcast maybe. I don't know. Maybe that would be... I guess there's too much visual stuff happening in it. A lot of trailers and referencing things, so maybe it doesn't work. Go check it out though. It's over on the Patreon if you want to enjoy that. We'll be back next week. Plenty of games talked about this week. We'll have way more next week, so make sure you're subscribed. Drop us a review if you're interested in that type of malarkey. Definitely helps us out. And we'll see you next time on the Noclip podcast. Bye.